to forgive me this year. I've given up and I've gone for glasses. Resisted for many a year. Thank you, Mr. Wolfers, and thank you, Mrs. Tranfield, as well, for your speeches. Welcome again, honoured guests, board members, parents and students. A special welcome to those parents who've joined us for the first time this year, and thank you to our school community for welcoming them with open arms. I would like to thank John Colet School Board for their support and drive in enabling the vision and mission of the school to be enacted by a talented and committed staff. I'd also like to thank our Parents and Friends Association for their support this year, and particularly the President, Mrs. Nikki Tranfield, who is stepping down this year. Also, I would like to give a special thanks this evening to Mrs. Diane Renshaw, who has, in her first year of service as our Deputy Head of School, shown such drive, patience, and most importantly, good humour. I look forward to the many years we shall be working together. However, I'm sure she's ready for a holiday after her first year in the position. Next year, 2019, marks 500 years since the passing of John Colet, the man, who our school was named after. And tonight I'd like to speak briefly about the man, his ideals, the links to our school and our values, and the importance of tradition. John Colet lived from 1467 to 1519. He was born in London, the sole survivor of 22 children. His father was a wealthy merchant who was twice Lord Mayor of London. There's no mention that I could find about his mum. However, I think with 22 children, she was very special too. In his youth, John Colet studied at Oxford, and having obtained an MA, he travelled to France and Italy, where he studied, principally in Rome. Now, this was the time of the Renaissance, and John Colet was a friend of several very important people, such as Erasmus, Thomas More, William Latimer, Thomas Linacre, and King Henry VIII. He was a humanist, that is, someone who thought critically and helped reform the church. John Colet was a correspondent of Ficino and was directly influenced by him, and also deeply affected by the teachings of Plato and the Neoplatonists. Now, you may recognise some of the names I was just mentioning before, belonging to our sister school, Erasmus in Melbourne and Ficino in Auckland. John Colet eventually became the Dean of St Paul's Cathedral in London, and on his father's death in 1509, he inherited a large fortune. Instead of spending all his new wealth on himself, he decided to form a school for children. The school he founded is St Paul's, which was one of the first grammar schools and today is one of the leading schools in England. He selected a headmaster, William Lilly, another Platonist and a Greek scholar, and he prevailed on his friends to write textbooks, for none were in existence at that time. He himself wrote a simplified Latin grammar, which editions by Erasmus and Lilly became the standard school text in England for centuries. Now, John Colet was a man of stature, achievement and service, who gave of himself for the happiness of all. He acted with respect, service, courage, truthfulness, and by all accounts, stillness and empathy. It is these values that John Colet held through his words and actions that led to our school being named after him. And while our school may be well known for our academic results, Sanskrit, Shakespeare, chess, great food, talented headmaster, it is the core values within our school that is fundamental. Now, it is timely that on the 500th anniversary of the passing of John Colet, we look to how tradition has informed us and continues to guide our current practice within this very special school. The term tradition often gets a bad rap these days. It is often linked to feelings of being out of date, obsolete, or passé. However, I'd like to read just a very short description regarding tradition from T.S. Eliot, who I think hits the nail on the head. And this is in his words. Yet, if the only form of tradition, of handing down, consisted in following the ways of the immediate generation before us, in a blind or timid adherence to its successors, tradition should positively be discouraged. Tradition is a matter of much wider significance. It cannot be inherited, and if you want it, you must obtain it by great labour. It involves, in the first place, the historical sense, and the historical sense involves perception, not only of the pastness of the past, but of its presence. The historical sense compels a man to write not merely with his own generation in his bones, but with a feeling that the whole of the literature of Europe, from Homer and within it, the whole literature of his own country, has a simultaneous existence and composes a simultaneous order. Now, at John Colet School, we look to tradition and the words and actions of the wise to inform and guide us. It is the unifying shared perspective through time that continues to be woven through our program in such areas as music, Shakespeare, Sanskrit, art, or philosophy. And it is the backbone of our school. And while our school may be young, this proven program that has been in place since our beginning is formed from the very best of tradition. I believe if you ask teachers outside of this hall what is consistent in the education sector at the moment, they would probably say change. There seems to be a constant reviewing and shifting vision in the education sector in an effort to continually match the latest thinking, testing, or workplace trends, particularly in primary schools. While there are many modern teaching techniques and resources that we continue to evaluate and use, the core of our school remains steady along its proven course. It is with a focus on tradition that the learning within our school results in subtle emotional connections that build depth and, importantly, character. So again, 2019 marks 500 years since the passing of John Colet, and next year we are welcoming a visiting sculptor from the UK who, together with our students, will be working on a piece to commemorate and honour the tradition and values of John Colet and our school. We hope our community will support this worthwhile initiative. At our speech night in 2016, my first speech night with John Colet School, our graduating head boy, Callum Hoy, in his speech made a point that while we have many awards across different subject areas, we do not have one in which we celebrate and acknowledge a student who embodies the entire capacity of values within our school. So tonight, I'm pleased to announce that during our awards ceremony, Callum Hoy will be invited to come on stage to present our newest award, the Eagle Award. One student has been chosen from infants and one from primary, from feedback from staff throughout the year. Lastly, it is our students who are the embodiment of tradition and values that our school holds dear. That is why we are here. I would specifically like to wish our graduating class the greatest success as they move on to new challenges. Their spirit and character are sure to be felt in their future schools and indeed in the wider world as they develop and expand their influence. We look forward to keeping in touch and hearing of their adventures. Thank you.